Alright, folks, if there's anybody watching this, trying to get this set up, but it's a little tedious. We have a default set that it goes to unlisted pretty much automatically, and it's kind of annoying, but I think we got it figured out. Yeah, I think we got it all figured out. A little bit annoying, but yeah, I think we got it set. Alright. Cool. Alright. So, I'm going to try to get logged in here now so everybody can see what's going on. So, tonight, I was hoping to just do, basically, we were going to put out a video this week, but we couldn't make it come together quite all on time, so decided just to go live. And if any of you guys had questions about what we're doing, how we do it over here at Study Sasquatch, all of our research and stuff, just kind of wanted to share with you guys what we do, and trying to basically just cover anything you guys want to know about what we're working on with the camera systems, what we're expanding to, other areas, stuff like that. So yeah, so those who are hanging with me, feel free to ask questions. That's what this tonight's all about. Any question, we'll answer everything we can think of. My buddies in the chat can respond back to anything that I don't catch. Yeah, so I'm gonna release a video next week about a trip we did to another area that we're going and we've been checking out based on reports. And yeah, so that video will be out sometime next week. But yeah. Hello, Western Ohio Bigfoot Research. Welcome. Yes, we are planning on making those available to people for purchase eventually. We're in process of getting the bugs worked out of some of the second version. We're trying to make that available to people. It's got a little bit better resolution, a little bit better basically temperature reading, so telling the background from a subject. But yeah, we're trying to make those available at a very modest price point. So yes. Yeah, it's just me tonight here at the fire in my gazebo. So just enjoying this evening. It's just perfect temperature, had great weather past 2 days, so it's been nice to be outside. So I thought, heck, why not try to get out here and hang out with those who want to talk Bigfoot research, technology, ecology, biology, whatever. I'm kind of a big nerd for all that stuff. So yeah, any of that stuff. If you got questions, let me know. So it's not infrared dependent. Well, technically it is, but it isn't. It doesn't rely on infrared illumination or anything like that. It's actually reliant on thermal. So it's seeing heat. It's not seeing in heat and light are directly related, but basically infrared is the soft light spectrum, and then as you transfer into the deep infrared spectrum, you get more into heat, like this fire putting out. It puts out both. It's putting out infrared naturally, as it is, in the sense of visible light, but then there's deeper infrared, which transfers into heat. And that's why when you heat up a piece of iron, like in a forge, it starts glowing. It's producing enough infrared energy that it's crossing into the light spectrum, in which our eyes can detect. But technically, anything that's generating heat is generating a small amount of light. So, how does it trigger? That's kind of a little bit of an in-house secret, but I'll leave it at this. We're not reliant on a traditional PIR sensor. So there's no emission. Not even game cameras have an emission sensor. They have a detection sensor, meaning light can, in the environment, come down, hit a subject, or deep infrared, being heat, depending on the type of PIR sensor it is, and throw that energy back into the sensor. That's completely passive. And that passive detection of a change in the background temperature or light reflectivity sets off the camera, turns the camera on and tells it to start recording, essentially. So that's a PIR sensor, passive infrared receptor. Game cameras, it gets crossed all the time. The illuminator is a separate entity from detection. The illuminator is just simply for the night vision, basically the infrared camera, the camera part, not the sensor, but the camera part to essentially see the animal without disturbing, because the higher into the light spectrum, or no, the lower you go into the light spectrum, the less the animals are impacted. That's why red light doesn't impact ungulates the same way as, say, white light. You're going to spook less deer with a red light output. So, yeah, my buddy Kirk Brandenburg's in the chat as Study Sasquatch 2, so he can jump into any questions also. So, yeah, he's helping me out tonight. But yeah, these true units that we've developed, what they're good for is they detect out several hundred yards. They can detect a heat source and set off the camera. Their trigger speed is far beyond anything a traditional trail camera uses and can react to. We specially built these cameras to interact with software and recording systems a certain way that we've been able to reduce latency by bypassing certain things and including different things into the system. And that's how we've gotten around the latency from traditionally the PIR sensor would set off. So cool. Audio's great. Glad to hear it. By the way, we were generously gifted by somebody the ability to get an external microphone for our setup, so we are glad to bring you guys better audio quality. We're working constantly to get better at filming, bringing you guys at stuff as it happens in the field as detailed and as clear as possible. The weather takes its toll on technology. When you're out in the rain, especially here in Washington State, you're out in really wet conditions. It can be really rough on technology. You're talking about stuff that's designed to operate in a dry environment, stay in your pocket, be in your car, be in your house. Most things are not built to withstand, being in severe weather. That's why most things that are built to be outside are rated on a scale of IPX water rating. So IPX 56, IPX 66, 67, and then 68, and on and on. There are different waterproof classifications, so you can see that on a product and roughly know whether or not it's waterproof, by the way. So, yeah. Yeah, again, to all those who've just showed up, it's just me tonight, and Kirk, my friend Kirk, is in the chat. This is just a Q&A. This is for any questions you guys have about our research, what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. Our whole goal with the channel is obviously to document Sasquatch activity in their natural environment, survey the areas, capture knowns, and sort them from unknowns to try to figure out if that is indeed what people are encountering and what spoor and other forms of evidence are being left behind, and trying to trace it back to figure out if it's coming from Sasquatch in origin. Because people have all kinds of questions like, are wood knocks a thing? Are rock clacks a thing? Do they have speech? Do they have, there's a lot we don't know for sure, but sorting the data is the goal. And then secondly, our second goal is obviously to share what good research should look like and what it's oriented on, to get people interested who are in Bigfoot to beyond an enthusiast or passive experience type of level. We want people to be able to have the tools, the knowledge, and the ability to go out and do research themselves. And then to, when they find something of significance or have a particular encounter, that they have the ability to record and capture that as much information related to that experience as possible, because it's the consolidation of all these various amounts of information that are going to build a picture over time to show us what Sasquatch do, why they do it, where they do it, when they do it, all that stuff. And also build a better profile of the species to be understood by academia, by science, whatever framework you want to describe it towards. But it's to further the understanding that the subject has been unfortunately missing for a long time. There's a lot of people that get tied up with experiences, and that's totally fine for some people. But to know things and have them be recognized and potentially protect habitat, that takes species classification and identification. So that's what we're all about, trying to promote that mindset about dealing with Sasquatch. Just reading a couple chats here. Yeah, the Olympus DM 720 has programmable timer recording feature. It can be bus powered basically via a fake AAA to double D cell input to get you between 40 and 52 nights of audio recording on a timer function. Yeah, a 32 gig card, I believe, is the max you can use in that. Yeah, and the external power is exclusively, as I understand, exclusively done through the D-cell connection. I actually own 5 of these recorders myself. 3 of them are currently incorporated into long duration recorders, so LDRs as we call them. There's a few other models that can be substituted, but they are typically higher power consumption. So the Olympus LS7 is one of them. That one can be bussed by a fake AAA to another fake AAA out to D-cell connection. That will do it, but you're going to max out about 35 nights. Preamp microphones on board are great for camp recording, but again, in the weather, you don't want to run a recorder that costs $320 that much. Also, that recorder is not available anymore to the public as a new production item, like being made. You have to go to Guitar Center or eBay and find them, and they're actually way more in value now than they were just a few short years ago. So another one, the Tascam DR05 and DR08 are both timer recordable and can be USB standard, whatever standard used to be like 6 years ago or 8 years ago, to USB-A standard, and that can be run off of basically a AA power pack that Tascam also makes with an on switch, and that can bus power to the recorder. The DR08 does the same thing, as well as the DR05. Yes, I did. I just built this new gazebo specifically to have kind of like a studio for filming, for being able to come to you guys and have a place that you guys can see what I'm doing and what we're working on, us as a collective, do a podcast type setup, whatever. That is ultimately one of the big factors in getting this set up. So, yeah, I'm going to increase the lighting in here as time goes on, but this is what I've got up right now, but it's going to get to be a lot more soon. Yes, that's an important distinction. In the wintertime, the D-cell batteries expect about 32 nights. That's pretty typical, even with the D-cells. You lose about 30% of your power capacity when the temperatures drop. You can try to insulate your recorders by putting them in rotten stumps that have some degree of basically bacterial and microbe activity that kind of keep the temperature of the stump stable, and that kind of helps. In a waterproof case, running your external mics out onto foliage on top of the stump, that helps. Other things you can do is just thoroughly insulate the recorder, use aluminum reflective tape, foam in there just to further keep the recorder from getting too shocked by the cold, and the batteries as well. Yeah. Yes, the song meters, the SM4s and SM4 minis, both dual and mono mic audio, are great. They offer dual card applications for SD cards, so you can record and check and update via Bluetooth. It's a massive win. The only drawback is they use massive amounts of data on those cards, because you can't just simply go down to MP3. It's in WAV, which gets to be taxing if you don't have a high output laptop with a high grade processor like i7 Gen 4 and up, or something with a lot more RAM and good GPU. Yeah, it makes all the difference. But yes, you can absolutely record a very long time with a lot of power with the SM4s. You can, I think, exceed 55 days, if I remember right. But they're also pricey. That's the other thing. I can build a DM720 rig LDR with $9 for the case, between $80 and $100 for the microphones, $125 for the recorder, and then the D-cell to AAA connection, about $13. I'm staying below 230 versus the whole Wildlife Bioacoustic setup. You got to get cards, pick how many mics you want on board, and then the standard unit is several hundred over that threshold. So I can just get more recorders out with a lower recording threshold in MP3 and get similar results. I won't tell you the audio quality is great, because it's just not, but for the purposes of survey, it does a great job, and it's a great starting point for somebody that can't necessarily go Wildlife Bioacoustics. They also have a great software called Kaleidoscope, which offers a great spectrogram view and editing platform for reviewing and going through your audio. So that's all something to consider. All right, let me see here. A couple more chats. What's a great starter recorder? I would say it depends. Are you doing long duration stuff, like trying to record in your absence for weeks on end? In that case, go the Olympus or DM720. That's a great starter. We try to outline some of, lay out some of that, as I just did prior, on how to build those. We're doing videos on that kind of thing very soon and putting that out. I show some examples of it in my Sasquatch new area, or Study Sasquatch video that's called New Area Exploration. I kind of showcase that recorder functioning. The audio quality is pretty good. Honestly, the best recorders out there, hands down, if you can find them, buy them. It's the Sony PCM M10. That's hands down the best recorder you can get, in my opinion. It'll do professional recording, whatever. It'll do everything. So, yeah. Try the Sony PCM M10, Olympus LS7, Olympus LS11 is pretty good, and so is even the Tascam DRO5 and DRO6. Those are pretty good little handheld units. Battery life is the only concern with those. Those are all great starter recorders, as well as the Olympus DM720. Also, let's not forget Zoom, as mentioned in the chat. Zoom's the H1 and H2 are great recorders. Battery life is the biggest constraint. But they're great little starter recorders with a decent preamp mic already built in, so you don't need to necessarily get the external mic. So that's a good go-to also. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm incorrect. Kaleidoscope apparently does not have spectrogram. I was convinced that it did for the longest time. That is my bad. I thought it did. Huh. Yeah, I almost exclusively use Audacity and occasionally screen stuff in Sonic Visualizer. That's another great option to go to for spectrograms. Both of those are offered. Audacity is completely free, and there's a number of guides out there on how to use it. Let me see here. Gotta get this fire's not going very good yet. Was burning hotter a minute ago. But yeah, the Zoom H1, that is a great starter recorder. It's just the battery life is the only thing I'd be concerned about. But I know many people that start with an H1 or H2. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, that's the other thing. The H1 and stuff you can get the H1 and H2 on, like mentioned, eBay, used for a pretty decent price. That's a good place to start if you don't want to spend $100+ on a recorder. The Olympus LS11 does not have programmable, but it is a good camp recorder and for general audio recording. Like I said, depends on the purpose. If you want to do long duration, the LS11 is not one you want to go to. The LS7 is the one that you can basically bus power via the fake AAA to decel tactic. Yeah. The low power consumption and really high quality microphones on board are just a great way to start. Again, I absolutely love all the Olympus products, and that's the other thing. They seem to tolerate cold weather pretty good. They run, because they're so low power consumption, they don't pull heavy when they're drawing power out of the battery. So even when the temperature's low and the voltage in the battery is iffy, it doesn't seem to cause as many error files or problems down the road. So that's just something to consider for audio. Proceed. Hope I didn't miss anybody. Somewhere on here. Okay, no, cool. Cool, I got everybody so far. Yeah, Kirk's helping me out in the chat. Yes, the Hex camo. I've had a suit of it. It does seem to work. Basically, the way Hex works, for those not familiar, Hex is a EMF blocking fabric weave, basically metallic fiber in a camo suit. Essentially, it just blocks your body's output of EMF out into the environment that animals may be able to detect. And so the advantage is that the animals, that ripple of movement that you cause out into the forest where animals perceive your sight, sound, and your potentially the energy being put off by your body, is reduced. The amount of electromagnetic waves that you send out that animals can perceive is drastically reduced, at least according to the claims and in my personal experience. I'm not aware of any published peer review papers or information that necessarily prove it, but there's a lot of anecdotal information out there that suggests that it works. And in my experience with whitetail, blacktail, mule deer, elk, moose, bear, it does seem to do something. You seem to get much closer, and even when you get detected, there's like a hesitancy to freak out and run off by most animals. So yeah, Hex is spelled HECS. It's a really cool piece of technology to get your hands on. If you get to use it, it's amazing. Okay, yeah. So there is a company called, I think it's Vileo, Vileo. They make a whole series of high performance dash cams that are not super expensive, and I think they do 2.7 and 4K models. That's what my friend Kirk has. I believe Chris has a Vileo one, and then I have a one I got a couple years ago. I can't remember the make and model. I think it's Ape Man, funny enough, called Ape Man Cam, but they no longer seem to make dash cameras, but that's the one I run. It runs with the Sony Starvis night shot sensor, so it can see really deep into the light spectrum, so you get maximum effect on your headlights. It also has a controllable field of view on mine. The same Starvis sensor, I believe, is available in the Vileo cameras as well. Yeah, Vifo. Sorry, I thought it was Vileo. It's Vifo. Viofo. Thanks, Kirk. Appreciate that. Hi, all the way from Long Island. Thanks for being here. I'm sure it's pretty late out your way, but thanks for stopping in. What's the latest encounter or vocalizations you guys have had? We've had a lot of knocks, bangs, and crashes and movement after, like at 4 a.m. But I think the latest or like technically earliest in the morning that we've experienced is like 3 o'clock that we were absolutely solid on. And again, I think that's my personal take. I know everyone in our group would probably have a different answer. But as far as like activity that we've got a strong feeling about is related to our target subjects or Sasquatch. Yeah, would be around 2:30 to 3 a.m. is about, I think, one of the more late ones that we're pretty certain on. So, yeah. Yeah, Chris is also in the chat. Chris Spencer is also with us tonight. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And Rebecca. Oh, Chris left. Okay, so Rebecca's here. Cool. Oh, the latest thing going on. Trying to think what the last thing we had. The video we're putting out this upcoming week. We're not sure that this is Sasquatch related, but we went into an area that had a bunch of reports around the area, and we went in there specifically because of how many reports were on the periphery of this location. We went in and camped out, and in the very first night, so we made it in there like 9:30, 10 o'clock, just after dark, or when it was really dark, I should say, and set up our camp, and we just started making noise, talking, laughing, joking, being loud, yelling out into the woods, just being loud humans doing weird stuff. And we, all of a sudden, well, before this, I heard I thought it was mumbling, some kind of groaning. It could have been a distant vehicle. I only heard it on the edge of my hearing. And then I heard 2 loud bangs. I'm not sure if those were gunshots or knocks or whatever. Again, it was while we were talking. I couldn't make it out. About, I want to say 35 minutes later, me and Kirk are talking, maybe 45, and a tree goes down. A big tree goes down just outside of camp, maybe 65, 70 yards down slope from the camp. So maybe a total of like 85 yards, 90 yards, somewhere in that range. Big tree goes down. And I say big, probably about as big around as, a little bigger around than my leg at the top. And immediately after that, there was a bunch of movement down in the timber below us. And we heard some thuds, like footfalls, like 3 or 4 in a row. And then something pushed brush, almost like something plowed into a stand of like 10-foot young vine maple or something, just plowed right through it. So that was the most recent thing that we experienced that may or may not have been related. It's included in our upcoming video. And then we did go scout the next morning down the area trying to locate the tree, and did find a series of very heavy like compression marks in the soil. So that would be the latest thing. It maybe not. Yeah. And then what else? Before that, a variety of instances happened up at our primary research location. Just before hunting season, we had some stuff I think happen, if I remember right. And then we've also got passive audio recorders running, and we're getting a number of interesting audio recordings coming out of that area. So yeah. Let me see here, just make sure I didn't miss anybody. Nope. Okay, cool. But We have received a couple of questions lately about, are we working in the same area? Because we keep talking about different places that we're working. Right now, we're looking at between 4 and 5 different locations. We have a primary location, but there's been a lot of human activity introduced lately and some changes to the landscape and stuff going on around that area that could impact and change what's going on in our access. So we are scouting other locations to see if anything is going on in other areas that we've pulled reports from. So that is something we're currently working on, is we're expanding our reach to other areas around the Cascades that are still within driving distance. And we're surveying with audio equipment. Chris specifically is surveying one area we're referring to as Boar Marsh because of proximity to a whole bunch of reports that I and others in the group have dug up and reviewed and see some significance in. So that area, we have another area that I call the Stronghold area. That area is above a wonderful plateau and bench of just thick old growth, huckleberry laden, and it crowds right down to major stream pathways that go through the area. So there's that location. And we're also surveying another site in the Cascades here that rides up and away from some small logging town areas, and also a number of benches, wet plateaus, marshes, ponds, alpine lakes. We took Alex Pedikov up to that area in the latest series from Small Town Monsters. We're running that area, and then we've got 2 other areas that we're still cautiously exploring. Let me see here. Hello, Peter W. Welcome. Let me see here. Yeah, that's correct. In the late summer before hunting season, Shane, a friend of ours named Shane Hamry, I believe. Yeah, Shane Hamry. Just want to make sure. There's a lot of Shanes. I got to keep track of them all. He had apparently a sighting of the tan one when we were in camp, and he was talking with us after they had deployed cameras and had gone down along a ravine to deploy the cameras up on the edge of this basically knob, long running knob. And on the way back or on the way down, Shane heard something down in the timber because Shane was being a distraction trying to push anything back so it would not witness Kirk installing the cameras and servicing them. And when doing that, Shane heard some branch breaks and something moving below him, and whatever it is went all the way down with him and then also followed him, and then when Kirk joined with him all the way out. By that time they met me out on the trail. We merged at our camp location to talk about it, and then while talking, I'm looking at Shane, Kirk's looking at Shane, and then Shane's looking kind of like at us and past us. Something down below the dip, bright tan, upright, was standing down in the timber, and then it just stepped downhill away from him. So yeah, that was one of the more recent things. Yeah, we're doing a video on that one as well, as Kirk mentions. We have not caught a Sasquatch, something that we would be very confident is a Sasquatch on our thermal cameras yet. No, we've captured a number of humans and one possible figure that's interesting, but we're not really sold on it being anything of significance. So yeah, not anything on thermal with the true systems. That being said, Kirk believes he did film one in New Mexico in 2012, I believe. And that video is on our channel, the New Mexico Bigfoot thermal footage. And then maybe another time we did get a head peeking over a log in eastern Washington, up, I believe, in the Blue Mountains. That is also available on the channel. I think it's called the Peeker or something. Kirk, I'm sure, can elaborate on the title of that video. Yeah, we work really hard to document so that's the thing. The evidence. It's not that we have any particular secret sauce to finding Sasquatches or anything. It's just that we're filming and we're documenting and we're putting out passive systems to operate when we are consolidated in a location, hoping to catch something that is moving the periphery of the area. And it's also, we also have stuff recording like the trues in our absence. That's a huge edge that we have. Data collection is everything in this, so just to touch on that. Hello from Southern California. Yeah, that Southern California. I spent some time there. I got my wife from Southern California, so I have memories there. It's a great place. We primarily do a lot of work. Yes, the Cascades are the primary. We do occasionally visit the Olympic range, and we've visited other states in the past to try to expand our understanding. We've been in for everything from Minnesota, Michigan, to New Mexico, and then back up all along California, up into the edge of almost to the Canadian border, into Idaho, Montana. We've done stuff everywhere, just about. But the Cascades is our primary focus, for sure. Yeah, Oregon. I've done a little bit of stuff in Oregon. I've done like 2 expeditions in Oregon and some private stuff in the past. Not really. I had one really interesting close range knock experience in Oregon on Cindy Cadell's BFRO expedition. I believe that was like 2018. No. That had to have been 2017 or 16. I don't remember which. Let me see here. There's no vent on the fire. That's gonna just... No. This gazebo is all steel, and it does have a vent at the very top. It has a all the way around vent. So, yeah. I think my camera's out of focus. 1 second here. I'll fix that. See if it's gonna work. Yeah, there we go. That's a little better. Try to stoke up this fire too a little bit. But, yep. Let me see here. Yeah, Kirk's pretty cool. I agree. Spent a lot of nights in the woods with that guy. Yeah, Castle Rock's not that far from me. It's only a 30-minute drive for me. So I'm based around basically I-5, Highway 12 area, right where it merges, pretty much. Let me see here. No, I have not. I believe Rebecca's been, she's from out that direction. She could give you some more specifics, but I've not experienced anything out in the Northeast or Ohio. Michigan, yes. That's kind of where I got started with all this. Again, like I said earlier, the having activity, it's a tough call because we're not certain based on these, sounds out in the woods that we're necessarily always having Sasquatch activity. There's anomalous sounds, ambiguous noises, and it's not always clear that you can be like, oh yeah, that was a Sasquatch. We don't have enough data on something to be able to just make a claim on it, and that's a little reckless to do so. So yeah, it's hard to say, but we had some interesting events happen on our last trip earlier in October. So yeah, and that video will be coming out later this week. Let me see here. So I've had a parabolic mic. I actually had a parabolic mic about this big one time, a giant one. I custom made it myself. Used that thing for years. I've had many ones. They're great for directional sound, very directional sound. Like anything in a column out in the woods, you can hear far, far away, sound coming from far away, and hear movement. But for engaging the whole environment, it's very difficult. And then you also get, a lot of the time, you get a level of distortion with parabolic dishes. But they do have a place. They do function. If you can pinpoint something and you want to zero in on it, try to hear it better, a parabolic would be a good option. But it is one more thing to lug around and use when we already have these passive systems running from several dozen to 150 yards plus away from our camp. So on the question like about having a sighting and how difficult it is to film them, I'll say that the big thing is we're probably dealing with a very small population of these creatures, or there's probably not many of them. So it's like seeing a wolverine. It's just incredibly rare, incredibly difficult. By the time you know what you're looking at, it's already slipping into deep timber, out of sight. The things seem to be very aware of their bodies and how they act. They know to hide themselves behind objects and approach from positions of security. It's difficult. Many people only get a fleeting glimpse. So by the time that you think you're seeing something and that you know what it is, it's already disappearing. The other factor is Sasquatches like to be, seems based on reports, deep in foliage, in the timber. There's things between you and them, and by the time you can pull out your phone or your camera, you turn it on, you start recording. Your camera likes to focus on the leaves and stuff right close to you, or the foreground, or the closest visible, well-lit objects, and that seems to not be the Sasquatch back in the timber away from you. So that's why thermal's king. Thermal imaging is the king for seeing what's going on out in the timber, for sure. As to getting hit by a car, yeah, I mean, that is going to happen someday probably. And there's probably been a number of times where it's happened, but it wasn't a fatal strike, or it was, and the animal just had enough to get up and get out of that area and die in peace somewhere very remote. Or it could be that it just doesn't happen often enough that something can be laid out right there on the highway and someone find it. So, hello, Texas Bigfoot Rangers. Let me see here. And yeah, all right. I think I've caught up. Man, you guys got me a run for my money. It's hard to track all of it. I'm just gonna make sure that my camera over here is still functioning correctly real quick. Yeah, we're still good. All right, there we go. I gotta tell you guys, if you don't have a smokeless fire pit, you guys gotta get one. These things are awesome. I love this thing. I can come out here, like I said, under this gazebo, and it's not throwing hardly any smoke. It's burning clean, and it goes right out the vent. And I can just sit under here, even if the rain's coming down. It's great. And this one's got this cool mesh wraparound, so you still get heat through it and light coming out right by your hands and your legs, keeping your legs warm. But it doesn't throw ash or bits of wood or anything. It's solid. I love this thing. All right. Yes. I saw one in 2009, and I got lucky enough to have a second visual in 2015. The one in '09 was, of all places, Michigan. I would not have guessed that I would see something like that in Michigan if it existed to see it all. That was my mindset at the time. And then the other was up in the eastern slopes of the Mount Rainier area. I saw one in the moonlight walking below our camp. So. Yeah. Do we do meet and greet? We go to some of the conferences. We definitely go to some of the conferences, and we meet with some other local bands of researchers occasionally, and that kind of meet up and do campouts and talk about technology, equipment, and stuff like that. That's kind of the extent of our, I guess you could say, public meet and greet stuff. But if we do attend on quite a few of the conferences lately. We just did the Randall conference not long ago. Squatch Fest we've done a number of times. I went down and visited at the Oregon one, the Troutdale Bigfoot Festival. I've done a number of these over the years over various locations, but we're doing more and more as time comes. So we'll probably see some of you guys there, and we'll try to keep you updated as to whether or not we're going to certain ones or not. So. Let me see here. Just want to catch up the chat real quick. Make sure I'm not missing anybody. Yeah, Joe. Joe has the St. Helens area and museum, I think. Yeah, he's great, and he does a lot all around the Toutle area, I believe, all up and down the St. Helens area, really, I think. And he's got a pretty interesting setup with the Humvee and his thermal imaging equipment. He's doing good stuff down there, so I'd like to see more from him. I hope he puts stuff out on video about what he's working on. But yeah, Joe's great. I bumped into him at the conference last winter. So road crossings. About road crossings, and I'll just speak generally to Washington. Road crossings do seem, if you look at data and you're looking at specifically report data, and you're looking at high caliber witnesses and people that are seemingly not looking for attention and looking for just to express what they experienced. I personally, through looking at the information, I see a little bit of a trend. I see road crossings often tend to be lone stretches of road, large connection points and choke points between large sections of national forest, and the build and description of many of them indicate male. It's not that frequent that it seems to be juveniles or females. It seems to be mostly male described in a lot of the reports that I've examined in this whole from Southwest Washington to the North Cascades. And yeah, the closer you get to the colder months and the hunting seasons, stuff gets shaken up. Something happens. Anytime, and I'll just say I think from July to about November, stuff happens. And then there's a kind of a dead space. But then again, April and May seem to be a big thing for road crossing reports. The rest of the year, there's 2-month gaps a lot of the time when I'm looking at the data in the long term, and from what I deem as credible reports. At least here in Washington, I'm speaking about this edge of the Cascades that I'm most familiar with. Let me see here. Do I think young males
who mainly harass campers or males in general. Um, Again, there's not enough information to make any kind of call on that. I don't think. I would my gut suggests that if as far as primates go, the males tend to be troublemakers and the most bold, and but if we're going all the way down to gibbons and lemurs all the way up to humans, young males tend to cause the most trouble. So I mean, it's not a crazy idea, but I don't know that we can specifically say based on data that we think that the juveniles and the young males are more inclined to do that. But because I'm aware of times where adult males, according to reports, people who've seen them outside of the camp, very large adult male, or by tracks, finding 17, 18-inch imprints in the morning, but outside of camp, the large males for sure get seen doing it, but there's not really a call on. I don't think there's just not enough data to make a call on any of that. Yeah, Study Sasquatch does a lot of videos recounting people, chronicling people's encounters, putting together videos of all of that all across Washington, driving some pretty good exposure to people having things happen. So, and their video work is cool. They're doing good stuff there. So yeah, Salish is doing some stuff. Yeah, I personal gut feeling, and this is based on just how few trackways there are found in the wintertime, because someone asked if perhaps they're afraid of leaving prints in the snow. We have found tracks a couple of times that seem to indicate, again, just if we're trying to interpret what the animal or creature is doing based on the tracks, it looks like they're trying to deliberately maneuver to not leave tracks in certain places, or to throw a track, something like that. They avoid. It seems like they avoid laying prints in certain places. It does seem that way. Do we know that for sure? No, but it does seem to be the case that they're around, but they seem to always be where there's a little evidence of being able to leave a print. Hard ground, rocky ground, or spongy, really spongy stuff that springs back up, or just completely avoiding human use areas in the winter when the snow's laid down. It just seems to be the case based on if I were just to look at information. Yes, I have. I've definitely gotten reports of them being aggressive towards humans. Again, it's like, it seems to be posturing and mostly like bluff charges and throwing stuff, smashing stuff. That kind of thing is pretty common. That's pretty aggressive behavior in my book. Yelling, screaming, stomping. That's another one. That stuff does get reported, and I definitely, it's very directional. It is done in the direction of people. It at campsites, hunting stands, and a variety of locations. They make it a point to make themselves obvious at certain points based on reports and personal experience. Yeah, unfortunately, we lost Dr. Meldrum here about a month ago, a little over a month and about a month and a half ago. He was a great physical anthropologist and really good critical thinker on all things Bigfoot, and just the immense weight that he brought to the subject as far as credibility and publishing stuff. There's a hole in the Bigfoot research community and in the subject as a whole because of his passing. So, yeah, Meldrum will be missed by many. Yeah, they definitely, there's definitely points where the reports concentrate. Like I said, there seems to be favored crossing points, and I think that has a lot to do with a particular theory that we have about them having like a circuit of movement that's just constant, and it's based on resources. In the theory, it's based on resources and not overbrowsing. And hypothetically, if they're like other primates, the large males constantly passively move about, possibly leaving offspring and females at resource-rich locations while they continue to survey ahead to find areas that'll bear resources in the coming months. So they can loop back around, pick them up, the family unit, take them around, drop them at the next resource point. And that may account for many of the repetitious road crossing points that we see, that a 1 to 2 mile stretch of road just produces road crossing after road crossing after road crossing. I believe that that is a good deal of some of that stuff. Throw another log on the fire here. Oh, did my stream cut out? Guys, I don't know if you can hear me or not. My stream says it's still going, but I lost my feed. Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, my stream basically got all weird. Let me see here. I'm sure they've witnessed people messing around with their footprints and where they stood. So they're, and also think about it. If they're an omnivore / predator, they probably track animals. We know chimps, bonobos, gibbons, orangutans, all when they do need protein and they do actively hunt, they pay attention to sign of other animals and get sneakies, right? And so that means potentially seeing prints of other animals to know that there's something to hunt in the area. And because their face and their snout isn't built for relying on a nose, it doesn't seem to be the case based on their biology and their morphology. So they're probably very visual cue creatures, visual and auditory creatures. And if that's the case, they would, and if they're a higher cognition creature, like we kind of believe that they are, it would make sense that they trace sign by track, by movement, by discoloration, damage, all that kind of stuff. And if that's the case, and they're self-aware like all other large apes, and even into hominids, they would be aware of prints and that they can leave prints. That would just make very good sense. So wouldn't surprise me. On the woo factor, I have never experienced anything that I would call woo in association to Sasquatch. I've not. And most of our group has not. We've had, experiences where later we reviewed it, and if we had wishful thinking, you could see how could someone bend an odd dream or an experience into a woo Bigfoot experience. We've not had that, to my knowledge, and I certainly haven't. And to add to that, I'm not convinced of the paranormal angle. I'm just not, because if they were paranormal or woo, as people suggest, that does not explain how they screw up often enough to leave track sign, vocalize, get captured on audio, get captured on video, leave trace, still need to forage in the woods for berries, and cross roads, because if they're portaling, why do they walk across a road in front of a truck? If they're capable of doing all this stuff, why do they have to travel at all? If they can have telepathy, then why do they get seen accidentally and then flee, or act surprised when a hunter sees one and lines them up in a scope? There's just a lot of holes in that theory, personally, for me. Pheromone chips.
I know Chris has used them. I've not used them, but Chris Spencer's used pheromone chips in the past to try to use some kind of provocative scent lure to see if maybe something could respond to it. Basically, I believe they're synthetic ape hormones and body odor, or similar to them enough odors that they use those in primate research. And I haven't noticed, Chris might be able to answer on this, I'm not sure. The pheromone chip situation, I'm not sure if he's had activity around those or not. Yeah, the Sasquatch and the Yowie, I've heard claims that they're similar. I don't have a lot of information on the Yowie. I'm aware pretty generally of the stories of the Aboriginals have had and a number of the population in south eastern Australia, to know that it's definitely in the folklore, and it definitely seems to fit the description. So in the winter, where do they sleep? There's the Olympic Project nest site is a big point of discussion, or in the Bigfoot research field. Those seem to be some kind of concocted nest, some kind of built nest by something, and it appears to have hands that have used it, at least vaguely that I can tell. I've not been to the site, so I don't know. Chris Spencer has a load of information on that and can answer that more, I'm sure, in the future. Sleeping, I'm pretty sure I've gotten 2 separate reports where someone saw a Sasquatch from across a canyon on a mossy ledge scrape up moss and build itself a bed up against a small stand of old growth trees overlooking the ledge down, so it could see what was going on below and listen to all the human traffic on the road. It was witnessed building a moss bed to stay out of the snow up under the timber. And it slept on its knees. It laid down on its knees, face down, and then kind of butt up a little bit and slept its head on its arms. So I think they just kind of like, probably, and this is again personal take, they probably just set up wherever they feel the most safe, secure, kind of scrape up a spot, or just lay down. And always, it seems like to always be when it's noted from a high point of good observation and ability to listen. So, and as far as hibernation, I'm not sure that they hibernate. They may go into a form of what is called torpor, which is it's like pseudo hibernation. It's like 2-3 day stretches of very low activity, and they sleep a lot. They don't feed a lot, and they also probably, I don't know that they do any of those things, but it would make sense for in the season that there's just not as many calories just laying around in the woods. They could also be foraging heavily on lichens like lungwort, petal lichen, old man's beard. They could be feeding on fat. They could also be in a partial caloric deficit most of the time, so they just reduce their caloric intake total and rely on body fat in that time frame. But I don't know that there's evidence that they necessarily hibernate. I don't think we've seen anything to suggest that. It's probably just very suspended animation, low output of energy, and relying on reserves and passively acting on whatever foods are available. Okay, here. Yeah, the Port Angeles to Fork stretch, there's been a lot of road crossings up there, for sure. I have a road crossing sighting. Yeah, I definitely, all of the information we've collected, reviewed, and sorted through, the one thing I'm pretty confident on is that they are hyper aware. They probably have a darn near photographic memory. They seem to key in on almost everything that we do, where we put stuff. That's why we've had to work so hard with the camera systems to keep them passive and hidden in long periods of time.
to try to not change the environment drastically, so they can't potentially pick, or they're less likely to pick up on it. They seem to always have a strategy to everything they're doing, from how they move, where they're going, what they're eating. Everything seems to be strategically laid out. There's a forethought plan and careful observation of any time their situation changes, or any time that they are willing to interact with us. It's difficult to trick them, and we think we've done so a few times, but it just seems like it gets harder and harder because they get smarter and smarter. Yeah, Rebecca noted, I guess in 2017 they tried these chips in a variety of locations, the pheromone chips, and had instances of basically brief increases of activity at a variety of places around his audio recorders. Yeah, Todd and Shane bumbling around in the brush. I got to tell you, they're out there beating it, looking around, getting wet. That's what it takes to find stuff. You want to find the weird stuff and have the weird experiences, you got to be out there when it's cold, it's wet, it's nasty, or good weather. Because the reality is that it doesn't seem that the Sasquatches have a choice. They're still there, and they might, much like black-tailed deer, take advantage of the fact that the environment's terrible and nothing else wants to be out and moving around to selectively use that time to move and do what they want to do. And you might get lucky and find where they're cutting through or doing their thing, and you surprise one. It's possible, definitely possible. So I've spent a lot of time on the nocturnal, diurnal, or crepuscular question. I would say heavily, again, my gut says they're probably passively in and out during the day, listening and sleeping short periods. Probably very crepuscular, but primarily nocturnal. They seem to do a lot of the moving and a lot of the interacting with things and people, or whatever the situation is. Their actions seem to be very heavily at night, from like 10:30 to 2:30 a.m. seems to be the biggest swing of activity, interaction, and generally being seen crossing roads and such. But they're not outside of moving during the day or dawn or dusk. They will, based on information, they seem to do that. It's just, it seems that the dominant part of movement is at late at night. Hello from Argentina. That's a long way. That's more than a skip and a jump. Welcome. Well, thanks for joining us, SMG 2040. We appreciate that. We work hard to bring you guys good content and, focus on the subject and what Sasquatch research is all about. That's what we're here for. Let me see here. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up here in just a few minutes. But yeah, if you guys got any more questions, I'm gonna be getting off here in about 10 minutes. My wife tells me that I have a bedtime, apparently, so I've got to go to bed, apparently. So I'm told. But yeah, it's been great having you guys here with us and getting questions. I love it. This is what we want. We want people to be interested in the research side. That's what it's all about. It's about the research. Let me see here. Yeah, there does seem to be. I would, at least me personally, I would say there's definitely some kind of discipline within. Like they know how to act, what's acceptable, what they can get away with, and it's like clockwork. There's a lot. Almost everywhere you go, they exhibit the same shyness. They know when to be perfectly quiet, what angle to approach from. They're super cautious, always watching, always listening, always like surveying if anything's changed. That seems very evident. And yeah, if one is born with a disability of some sort, it definitely would play a factor, I would think. And we've actually taken some interesting reports where we think that it's a potential, at least, that the Sasquatch is not operating in the same way that the Sasquatches normally operate. They seem to be more reckless, more emotionally prone, and make mistakes. There's a couple of instances I can think of off the top of my head where that's happened. But it seems to, and I'll just note, it seems to be the same individual in a particular one location that I'm thinking of now, for sure. Yeah, on mimicking, I think, again, I've had experiences that are tough to explain away if it wasn't a Sasquatch doing it, where it mimicked my voice and it mimicked my whistles a couple of times um, back to me while I'm there. I have a recording of it. Um, but as far as other animal mimicry, I've not recorded a lot that we could really go, oh man, that just sounds so odd and different. I think human psychology kind of creeps in to the equation. A lot of the time, I think people get spooked in the dark, and a lot of people will hear something, and it just seems off, man. Well, when you go out with the intent of looking for Sasquatch, people can kind of bend any experience or a close owl startling them, or a cacophony of owls responding to each other as something that it's not. And juvenile owls can make some really weird owl sounds that are distorted from what normal adults make. So that should be factored in also. But if you had calls changing species, that'd be interesting. Or something mimicking direct human behavior, that would be interesting also. I hate to say it, but Patagonia is a long way for us, and we're really focused on what our research is basically framing out to be here. So that's a long way to go for us. Maybe someday, but I don't. I unfortunately can't. I couldn't tell you that we have any plans to go down that far. That's a long stretch. Instead, I encourage anyone watching our stuff, if they're having experiences in other places, go out and take some of those practices and some of the data and some of the tools that we use and implement them yourself. Go out and try to do your own recording, do your own talking to witnesses who had sightings of weird things. Do that thing. And because its data collection is going to lead you to something. And it's fun. You get time in nature, you get to be around a fire, and you get to hang out with people who think outside the box and have a unique view of what might be going on in the woods. And you get to learn all about the ecology and wildlife biology around you. So I encourage those who are interested to go out and do that. Let me see here. We appreciate all the support you guys give us. You know, we get lots of comments. We try to read every single one and respond to every single one that we can. We get a lot. And overwhelmingly, you guys, like, really recognize what we're doing and that we're honest in putting in the work and going out there in spite of the conditions and the issues and the time, the gas, the effort, and you guys watch what we do, and we appreciate that a lot. It's a lot of work, and we're just glad that people are receptive to it, because when we first started this whole thing, we were like, are people really going to care that we're all getting all muddy and filming almost nothing but some normal wildlife, or only the casual bump in the night every once in a while? I'm not sure people are going to be as interested in the research angle, because it's just not as shocking, it's not as TV. But you guys have shown us that there is that you do care about the topic itself and about the research aspect. So we really appreciate those who comment, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. It helps us immensely, because the more that we can, rally people on research, we're going to change how people look at confronting a question or a mystery. And then two, it promotes us to get out and do more of this stuff and really dig in, get more equipment, and just get more information, and hopefully learn something really special and is significant, and bring it to you guys. Because that's how the ball's going to move, is people going out who have the time and the capability to film, document, and interact and become a action item in the landscape that is the Northwest here. So we really appreciate it. It's everything. You guys have been awesome. Yeah, us too. We really hope we film one of these guys again real soon. We really do. We've been grueling and lumping around hundreds and hundreds of pounds of cameras in the woods now for over a year and a half with the thermal imaging systems that we've custom developed and built, the Trues, and deploying them and showcasing that technology and its potential based on other wildlife interacting with it. And it's hard when you've put out things hundreds of times and not much shows up other than the normal wildlife. But hey, man, it's a needle in a haystack. The needle's moving away from you and it's actively avoiding you. Like, what do you expect? And there's probably just not many of them, and they're wise to everything you do. It's a tough call. It's not like fishing where you just throw a line in the water and hope you get lucky. You're talking about something that's thinking about you potentially as much as you think about it, and it's thinking how to get away from you. So typical research week. I would say we're right now we're kind of weekend warriors. The more that we're able to do this and basically financially break to more full-time research, which is an aim, we're hoping to be out a lot longer. We do, I think, 4 or 5 weeks every year where we're out for a solid 6 to 9 days. And it can sit, our typical day routine, just on repeat, is we arrive, set up camp, we typically kind of survey what the plan is overall for the weekend. We deploy the audio recording equipment, the thermal imaging equipment, and then we go out and kind of stir stuff up on the periphery, and then come back, hoping to drag something back that's curious back to our camp, and hopefully in front of one of our passive systems. And we do that on repeat. And when nothing works for 3 or 4 days, if we have a long stretch of time to keep going, we'll break and move to another block of forest off of the camp section. So we'll say if we're to look into the west area of interest and nothing's happening, we'll break and go east, and vice versa. We'll shift around until hopefully within 1 to 5 miles in any direction we can hopefully hook up with something, make something happen, and then drag it back. That's kind of the hope. And we repeat that cycle as much as possible and try to gain insight on behavior if we do get an approach. And it's worked a few times. A lot of daytime naps if we've been out late, and we stretch the wire thin. We push it to the point that we're like sleep exhausted. We do a lot of. Some of us like to do night walks. Some of us don't. Some hold camp down. Others leave and do excursions during the day. Awesome. I love hearing that you guys are doing data collection and documenting everything. That's awesome. Patterson Gimlin film, I'm like 60-40, 60% think it was a Sasquatch filmed. It looks a lot like what I saw in Michigan, but I saw a male. But at the same time, I don't know. It was a long time ago. It's convincing. It's beyond what costume design could do at the time. And it has mechanics and ratios that are difficult to put a human in proportion to. And the foot morphology has been consistent from the trackway from Patty's sandbar walk. So I think it has a great shot of being legit. We typically deploy in the field 6. We typically have 6 out. It vacillates because sometimes the camera goes down, has to be repaired and reserviced and put back. But from 5 to 6 is pretty normal. We're looking to expand that array very, very soon. We're building new systems currently that will be more power efficient and do more. So we hopefully will double our cameras soon. Oh yeah, not too far away, huh? Yeah, thanks. We appreciate that. We put in the time. We are doing all we can, and you know that's what it's going to take. Is now the best time. Right around, we try to avoid hunting season. Hunting season provides a massive pressure on the forest. There's humans crawling into all kind of sections and corners. It's difficult. So we avoid hunting season. But the most profitable, I mean, in the sense of like interactions and movement, it seems to be that late April through May, June seem to be hot. And then there's another stretch, and I hate to say July because it's so close, but late July through August into September get hot. Early September seem hot. That's when you get a lot of reports. You get a lot of activity, and the interactions seem to increase. And it has sporadically happened in December and February. There's a tick. Something happens there that seems to indicate activity jumps up and approaches might happen. We don't have enough data to necessarily say there's a best time, but if I personally had to pick a time, May. Be out all of May, look everywhere possible in May. Your boots should never get dry in May. You should just be out as much as possible. Well, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to let this fire burn out and going to call it a night. We appreciate all you guys joining us here. It's been great. And yeah, we're going to keep working to film more content of us going out, doing our thing. We're always out, and we're trying to film as much of it as we can. Sometimes we don't get to film as much as we'd like because we're busy doing things, you know, the actual research part. But we're refining our ability to bring you guys along with us, and we're trying to provide as much information as possible. So we really appreciate you guys showing up here for us. All right. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. It's been a good one. I hope you guys all have a great night or morning, depending on where you are at. And yeah, we'll try to be back with you guys soon. And we're gonna be doing more stuff from the field, hopefully, and where we have service, and debuting some videos on how to put up equipment, the usefulness of different kinds of gear and technology, and how to better utilize that technology to get better captures of more animals, more movement of things going on. And we got a lot more to show soon. And so thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and end this now. But yeah, God bless and stay safe. I always forget how to turn this off. I think he's back. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks.